Hey, everybody, welcome to tonight's program, Donkeys Only. Donkeys Only. But it's okay if you've got a mule or a horse, we'll let you in. It's going to be a lot of fun. My name's Dave, this is Steve, and this program is all about helping you understand the donkey. Are there differences? Maybe there are. Are there things that you're going to want to change about owning a donkey versus a horse, even a mule? Maybe. Are there things that you're going to learn tonight that they never taught you in Horse Class 101? I don't know. Possibly. That's why you're here. You're here to figure it all out. And so we're going to do our best to make sure that we give you good information tonight. And not just good information, but information that will actually help you should you decide to go out tomorrow or even tonight. We got some friends on California time. It's 4 o'clock their time. Go out tonight and try what it is that we're doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, my name's Dave, and this is Steve Edwards. And for the next 60 minutes, we are your tour guides into the theme park of all things donkey. Steve, how is it going?
Guy, just right. I was thinking about it this afternoon. My first donkey that I had, about 52, 53 years ago. And she was extremely smart. I didn't think about her at that time. I didn't think about riding them or anything like that. I just used her for kind of a pet. The kids enjoyed her, and she was a pretty good size. But she was really smart. I had a gate on each one of the corrals, and the gate was about 2.5 foot above the ground. So I would come out in the morning to feed, and I would see something got in the hay. All the hay was messed up. All the animals, though, were all in their pens. And I thought, what in the world? Something's getting into my hay. Can't find any tracks, nothing. A few days later, I come out there a little bit early because I had to leave that day. And here's that donkey. She's just was outside feeding in the hay, heard me, went back, slid back underneath the gate, and got up on the other side and got up here like, okay, I'm ready to be fed now. I haven't been fed yet. She would go underneath that gate, come up on the other side, feed the hay, and when she was done, slide back under. Smart little rascal.
That's fun. Steve, we've got friends already chiming in, and so I want to let you know we are glad that you're here. Tonight's going to be filled with stories. Tonight's going to be filled with all sorts of insight. Tonight's going to be filled with real life cowboy learnings that you can't get anywhere else. And if you have questions along the way, we want to answer them, do as best we can to answer them. We had probably 36, 37 questions come in over the course of the last week plus, folks asking things that they want to know about their donkey. If you have any that you think of, go ahead and ask them as we go along, and we will answer those as at the end of the program. Now, if you have things unrelated to the donkey, if we have time, we'll get to them, but we are prioritizing donkey questions tonight, and I think we ought to just get started. Steve, my first question is, are donkeys different from horses? Are donkeys different from mules? Isn't just a donkey an equine, a smaller version and a differently shaped version of a horse?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that would disagree with me and say, no, a donkey and a mule is not really an equine. The reason I know that, I've had apprentices in the past go to equine shows, horse shows, were open shows where anything could go, and they wouldn't allow them to come in because they were not an equine, they said. No education. But then the times that when they did let the mule go in there, the mule itself just wiped up everything, and it was amazing. I actually had apprentices that the judge of the show said, I judged you this time first place because you deserved it, but I won't judge another mule again, and things like that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Here's the fun thing about this. Donkeys have been ridden for centuries. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to hit on this, Dave, you and I got a particular person in our lives that used to ride on a donkey years ago. Matter of fact, his mom ridden on the donkey, and she carried him. And you kind of know who that is if you think about it. And it's amazing how we see them in the Bible time and time again talking about riding their donkeys, and 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 so they've been around for centuries. Matter of fact, when I was in Egypt and Israel, they actually rode the donkey back up on its hip. They didn't saddle it. They throwed a blanket down and they rode back up on the hip, not on the back, on the hip. And they took a long stick, and that's how they guided that donkey, was by that long stick, going back and forth. And that donkey would take him to the store or whatever it was. They put a little tiny hobble on their leg, and it had a little stake on the ground out in front of the store. And they would hobble that one leg, and the donkey would just stand there until the person come back out with whatever they had. And then they put those saddlebags over the back of the animal. They climbed up on the hip and rode back home. The donkey knew where to go back home, took him back. So anyway, yes, the donkey is an equine. He's an equine. They're awesome. They're getting to be more and more popular. They're super intelligent. They're, as far as I'm concerned, they are the main brain of the mule, the main brain, and all the natural stuff. You take and put a 5-gallon bucket in front of grain in front of a donkey, and he'll only eat just so much of it and walk away. The horse will come over there and eat all of his and the donkey's as well and founder himself. But the donkey just rarely would do something like that. Now, I can tell you, though, on the opposite extreme, you still want to take care of your donkeys no different than you would taking care of any other equine. You would be doing trimming their feet every 6 to 8 weeks. You would be doing dental work once a year. Okay, all of that. I strongly suggest chiropractors to make sure their hips and back are into place. Remember, we were never meant to ride these donkeys and mules and this sort of thing, really. But we have evolved where we have ridden them, But they're a wonderful animal. They're gentle. For the most part, they're not quite as spooky as the other equine, the mule or the horse. They seem to be a lot more on the watchy look. That's one of the things about the brains of the mule, is they take care of themselves going down the trail. They're watching what's going on, or should be anyway. It depends on the rider sometimes too. But that donkey's always saying, if I make this next step, will it be safe? If I eat this, will it be safe? And they don't always do that, because here's one of the downsides of donkeys. They're really easy to grass founder. We're going to talk about feed later on. But unfortunately, they're just like you and I. We go to a big old place and have all this kind of food and everything, and we eat too rich of a food, and we start putting on pounds, and then pretty soon we're way too much. I notice how fat I am in some of these videos. I've lost a little weight since then, but anyway, they're really easy to founder. That's why I try to suggest to everybody, do not put your donkeys out in the pasture. Okay, you do, they will get grass founder across the top of the neck, across the top of the ribs, and across the tail. And that's all grass founder. And it is extremely difficult, if almost impossible, to get rid of. And that's what makes it so easy to take care of. The downside is carbohydrates is what kills the mule and donkey in the long run. So anyway, that's the short of it. They're great animals, lots of fun to be around.
All right, so where we're going to go tonight, folks, we're going to talk about differences in bone structure, differences in nutrition, differences in healthcare, the differences in their behavior and nature, and then differences in training. Now, Steve Super Skeeter is here watching, and I'm thrilled because I haven't seen Super Skeeter in a while. Super Skeeter had something that I really want to key in on. It says, I have a mule, but I want to understand the donkey side more. And I think that's where I feel myself right now, is I understand so much of what we do as donkey, mule, and then horse. So donkey, mule on this side, horse. but I do know that there are some differences between the donkey and the mule. So I'm interested to learn what those differences are, where they do exist, just to round out my information. Now, before we get into our first section here of differences in bone structure, for our friends who have never hung out with us before, I just want to let you know and tell you that you're going to be getting good information tonight. And it's not just because I say it, and it's not just because Steve's sharing it, but I'm going to read to you just a few reviews of what folks have had to say about working with Steve's tack, Steve's saddles, and their donkey. And why I'm going to read the reviews of the saddle is because the saddle connects to so much. It depends on the training, it depends on the communication, it depends on the placement, the bone structure. It's wrapped up into everything. So I just want to share this with you. This one came from Jennifer. Says, I love my Trail Light saddle. My first priority was that my riding donkey be comfortable, and he is. I didn't expect to be so comfortable myself. I especially love how light it is, so much easier on my arms, shoulders, and back. I have arthritis. I'm sure my donkey appreciates the lightness too, but don't let the lightness fool you. It is super durable and very beautiful. I get lots of compliments on it. So Jennifer sent that in. Andrew says, I'm a big guy. I wanted a lighter saddle for our donkeys, but it needed to be sturdy. My choices were fairly limited. There's not a huge selection on the market for donkeys. I knew from buying tack from Steve that he has high quality merchandise. The saddle is no exception. Very happy. Barbara says, absolutely 5 stars for this britchin and for the beta headstall I purchased for my donkey. Soft, strong, beautiful, and it's a fit. For those who ride donkeys, we all know most tack isn't made for the donkey's anatomy, and fit is always a problem. But with this beta britchin and headstall, it was so easy to adjust. I would recommend both. And Steve is just awesome about helping. It's been a pleasure doing business with him. And then finally, Mr. James Montana, great saddle, nice and light, comfortable for our riding donkey. I notice she steps out are easier, walks lighter, and goes the distance, and that is a lot of good to say by the donkey, because believe me, if she is uncomfortable, she won't go, or she puts up an attitude and tries to fast step it home. Thank you, Steve. Now I got a mule. My other boy has started to ride, and I have to save my money for another, either this or the trail rider. Another rider in the family means this poor daddy will have to work overtime. Now, what's cool, now all of those are great. We appreciate them all. What's cool is about a year and a half later, we actually went out to Chino Valley, where James is from, and tonight we are going to be sharing video of James doing the exercises that he learned from Steve. And we'll stop just shy of seeing that saddle, but you're going to see the surcingle, the britchin, you're going to see the cinches. It's going to be a lot of fun. But this came in before James even bought, before we even went out there and worked with James, and so that'll be fun. So Steve, I know that makes your head a little bit bigger there. So hopefully that hat adjusts a little bit. But I thought that was important. Folks know that they can trust where it's coming from. And as we always say, if you try it and it don't work for you, that's fine. You can do it. We're going to share with you what Steve has learned from the mule and the donkey the last 40 years. Section 1. Steve, what are the differences in bone structure for the donkey versus the horse and even the mule? I'm especially interested in the differences maybe between the mule, if they do exist.
Yes. Okay. So here's one of the downsides of the donkey. Okay, is their feet. Their feet are horrible. They can be just terrible to have to maintain. They get contracted really easy. And what I mean by contracted, they end up getting smaller like this. They get into moisture and then they walk and they get wider. It gets drier, so they contract. They get into moisture and it makes it smaller. They get into drier and they expand and contract, expand and contract. And if you don't maintain these donkeys with the trimming and this sort of thing every 6 to 8 weeks, you could have a problem. Okay. Another thing too is the mud packs up into their feet, and you end up with a lot of bacteria in there because the foot is too long. Keep your donkey's foot short. We're going to be talking about that shortly. Now, next thing, I want to talk about a couple of the bad things. The next thing, their hips are not very strong, very, very, very weak hips, uh, and 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 that is just because of the pelvis and this sort of thing. So they won't last as long and won't be able to go trail riding up and down some heavier mountains as your equine with the larger hip and the muscle strength and this sort of thing. They don't have a big Gaskin muscle, which is the muscle right below the knee bone. And that's a big driving muscle as well. So they're very, very weak. Now, one of the reasons that you know that is because if you look at their back end, that's called hocked. It's where their back legs are coming together at the knees. And sometimes they're so close that they actually even rub because they are so weak. And yes, you can fix that. I mean, not fix it, but you can strengthen that by doing surcingle work, which we'll talk about. But see, this is the downside of the donkey, is their hips and their feet. Now, here, what the feet and the hips go together because of this. If you take your babies under 7 years old and you start trimming them and balancing them from a baby, your mules and your donkeys, all right? Mules and your donkeys. If you do that from babies, you'll have a lot straighter leg, a lot more consistent leg than you would if you didn't do anything at all. One of the downsides of a lot of these people that sell mules, and there's several of them that do, is they don't trim and take care of their feet of their donkeys. They don't do it. I've seen it time and time again where people have showed me very expensive donkeys that they purchased from different donkey traders, and these have not been properly taken care of. They've not had proper dental work, but especially their feet have not been properly taken care of, and it's horrible to see that. You know, it's a shame that people get into this business because they're looking for the money. Yeah, we're gonna make a living. I understand that, but why not be professional about it? Why not have the donkey be the best you can? So that's a couple of the things right there. Now here's the next thing. The donkey's shoulders go up and down like pistons in a car. All right, like that. Horses go horizontal. So that's where the mule gets the up and down shoulder is from the donkey. That shoulder blade. Now shoulder blade kind of looks like this. And as it goes, it's doing just like this here. Now, some people put the saddle directly on top of it, and you get this. Now, the shoulder blade is actually kind of rounded off, okay? Rounded off, okay? Now, but it's not pointed. Now, if we look at this pictures, the horse is what we call short coupled. You see how he's got a high hip and it dips down toward the wither. Well, the donkey, this particular donkey, happens to have a very nice back to where he's running downhill, but it's only because he's got a good clean hip. The horse, though, is a short coupled horse, and it would be very, very hard to get a saddle built for him. So anyway, yes, they go up and down. Horses run horizontal. So you get that picture in your mind. So that's one of the reasons you want to put your saddle 2 inches behind the scapula, just like you do a mule. The bone structure is what I go by, not muscle mass when I am preparing for fitting a saddle, okay? I only have one tree, and that one tree fits all the donkeys, all the mules. I know it's hard to believe, but you go into any tack store, and there's only 2 main trees in there, semi-quarter horse and full quarter horse. I've been into tack stores all over the nation, and they all have basically the same thing. A lot of manufacturers they have, so they have different manufacturers that make these saddles, but only the 2 trees. Now, some people have got themselves a sales point where they can say, oh, well, we have all these different trees and we'll find one that fits you. Well, all right, if we fit that in January, when that donkey is fat and sitting around, and we fit him in July after we've been using a little bit, guess what? we're going to have a different fit because they're going by muscle mass when they put that tree on there. They put the tree on there and they say, oh, that's one right here works the best. Why is that? Because the tree fits end to end. No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You do not want that tree to fully fit the whole back, mule or donkey, okay? Mule or donkey. And the reason for this is that, number one, we talked about the scapula. It goes up and down, all right? Now, right in behind the scapula, here's the scapula, okay? Right in this area here, you'll see it's kind of dipped, okay? Right below that, if you put your saddle on, there's your D-ring. So that'll give you an idea where it is. If you take and over tighten that front cinch or tighten it too much or under tighten it, then it will start inhibiting that area. Where do you see white marks? On horses, on mules, on donkeys, right in there. Why is that? Because they're over tightening that cinch and restricting it. It's imperative you use both cinches. You have to have a front cinch and a rear cinch. Imperative, okay? The rear cinch is your anchor point. That keeps the saddle into place, not your breeching, all right? Your breeching balances the saddle. You have strap on the right and a strap on the left and two straps across the top. And just leave it. And they balance the saddle. That's called balancing, okay? The side straps keep the saddle from going left and right. The two and on the top keep the saddle from going forward. So it's really important you understand that rear cinch is what really holds the saddle in place. Your front cinch, once you hobble it and put a leather strap between the rear cinch and the front cinch, should be approximately 4 to 6 inches apart. Then that rear anchor cinch is going to keep this front cinch, which is always at an angle. It's at an angle because of the belly of the donkey. That belly of the donkey is hourglass belly. So what happens is you over tighten that front cinch, and that front cinch will pull that saddle forward. The saddle is trying to hold it into place by the rear cinch and the breeching, but when you have that front cinch too tight, it will bring the saddle forward. Now, not only will it bring the saddle forward, but it'll also restrict that area, and that's where you get a lot of your white marks. Now, where else do you get white marks? Fat pockets, where you have the grass founder, okay? It's really important to understand that when you got those high spots that are grass foundered, that are fat pockets, those fat pockets rubbing on the saddle will turn white. It will kill the hair follicles in those hairs in that area, okay? And it's usually right up along the back, roughly about 2.5 inches off where a big fat area lays right above the loin, right below the loin. So, you will get white marks there as well. Now, where else will you get white marks? When the back of the saddle, you notice the back of my saddle is open. I do not sew it across there so that it doesn't inhibit the hip. So looking at a bar on a mule's and a donkey's back, out of a 19.5-inch bar, I only want 15 inches actually touching so that it's not rubbing on the front part of the scapula, because the front of my bars come up. The majority of what they call mule bars, which they're not, they just happen to put a name on it. They've been on a few mules, and then therefore they say, oh, this is a mule saddle. No, it's not, okay? You don't have a clue, because if you look at these saddles, they have one latigo tightened up like you do a horse and 3 billets. What's a billet? It's a short piece of leather that's about 14 to 6 inches and 16 inches long on the left rear, right front. And that way you don't have to go to the other side to readjust your cinches. Yes, you do want to go to the other side and readjust your cinches. You want your cinches even. Anytime you have billets on an animal, you have to pull real hard to get up to that next hole. Where if you had 2 latigo straps, just like 2 pulleys, and it makes it really easy to cinch up without causing the donkey discomfort, blowing air into his lungs and quitting. So There's the basics of it. The basics of the animal is his number one is the hoof. It's a really sorry hoof, worst one of the equine. The next thing is the hips. They're very, very weak. They don't have the muscle structure. They have the bone structure, but they don't have the muscle to be able to help drive, to be able to take you on long trail rides, especially if you've got really hilly country. Then the other thing, of course, is the fat pockets. Across the neck, across the top of the ribs, and this sort of thing. Now you can have a nice little donkey with keen little heads, or you can have a mammoth donkey with a big old head. So that was the ones that were that George Washington first brought over. Did you know that? Did you know George
You've shared it
Washington
at some point in time, but it's not something that I would have been able to recall if you hadn't shared it.
Yeah. George Washington went over to Mexico, to Spain actually, and saw these big, beautiful animals pulling these plows and doing all this stuff, farm work. He said to the King of Spain there, Ferdinand II, "What is that animal?" He said, "That's a mule." "How do you get a mule?" "Well, you have a donkey and you have a horse." He said, "You breed a donkey to a horse to get a mule?" He said, "Yeah." So the king gave him 2 donkeys. They put them on a ship and brought them back to the United States. The one donkey made it. The other one didn't make it. And so they called that one donkey royal gift. And he was the beginning of mule and donkeys here in the United States of America. So there's some history clear back with George Washington. He brought the first mules and donkeys in the country.
Well, what do you know, folks? There you go. The education don't stop. Steve, I just have one more quick question, hopefully. Anything about potential problems in the donkey bone structure different from a mule or different from a horse?
No, you can still have the same problems with hoof care. You can get rotated coffin bones. You can get bowed tendons. Pretty much anything with any equine that you will have in a horse, in a mule, you will have in a donkey. Can they colic? Oh, yes, they can colic. Okay. Will they overeat? Oh, yes. You put them out there in the pasture and they will overeat just like you and I do when we go to smorgasbord. So,
right.
yep, they are.
Okay, the next thing is different in nutrition. Now, I am going to put a link in the comment section here to a free video that Steve has called Feed Talk. Really comprehensive, really helpful. But Steve, when it comes to the donkey, what are the differences that we need to pay attention to specifically in nutrition?
Specifically in nutrition, you have to be careful of carbohydrates. It's really easy if you kind of look at it in general, because you can look at grains, your whole oats, your crimped oats, your corn on the cob. A lot of people feed corn and they feed the corn on the cob as well, the field corn, and those right there are really bad about developing carbohydrates, which then develops the grass founder, which is the fat pockets. Now here's the other thing. Alfalfa hay. Really, not only is it tough on an equine's urinary condition in their system, but it's really tough on donkeys because of the carbohydrates that's in it. It can really make a mess. Now, can they have a little bit of carbohydrates? Sure. Like if you get the one feed that I used to feed all the time, they'll have a little bit of alfalfa in there in the one feed. The other one is Bermuda grass. But that little bit of alfalfa sometimes is a needed thing to have energy for the donkey to be able to do some of the things you want them to do, like loping circles and this sort of thing. Yes, they can lope circles really nice. So, yes, that feed, you want to be careful and do not turn them out into a pasture and just say, okay, I got all this free grass, I'm going to eat it. You will eventually kill your donkey. Okay, they will go out there and eat that grass. You'll have grass at certain times of the year that's really high in carbohydrates, especially your first cuttings, and that right there will flat destroy a donkey. Okay, really quick. Yes, they will overeat when it comes down to that. Now, yes, I could put a bucket of grain in front of them and they'll only eat so much and walk away. But when they get out there in that grass, that changes everything. They will eat that grass and they will get grass founders. So the feed is extremely important. Put them in a 20 by 20 stall, feed each one, water each one, make sure each one's got salt. Now, the one thing, Dave, you and I know about this is that if we put them in a stall, we can control their feed, but we can also see how healthy they are, right? We can see by their poop, by their road apples hitting the ground, how healthy they are. We can watch them urinate. They can watch different places where they urinate, different places. You can smell it if it's really bad, okay? So not only is it better to have your donkey in a small stall, but to protect them from overfeeding, but to be able to watch their health is the main thing. To make sure they're staying healthy is going to be up to you. When you turn them out there in that pasture, you have no idea how healthy they are, okay? Most folks have to depend upon a veterinarian to even tell them if they got a cold, you know? So anyway, yes, it's really important that you be careful about your feed, Dave, and put that program in there. That's really good. Mules
So,
can't
folks,
stand prosperity.
yep. So that is going to be where you're going to find the bulk. It's free. So instead of spending time rehashing what you'll get on that video, we're going to just touch the very basics there about the nutrition. And now we're going to go to differences in healthcare. Steve, the points here that I have is the stoic problem that they don't show pain, they don't show discomfort. I wrote, you already
Yeah.
talked a little bit about hoof care. I've got some photos. Just cue me when you want me to bring those up. A little bit about dental care and maybe vet care. It's 5:32, so we've still got a few more to hit. So give us the basics that we need to know and let me know when you want those pictures.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do the pictures, Dave. One thing you want to make sure of, folks, is that your foot is always trimmed every 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes 4 to 6 weeks, so that they are balanced and framed up. Now, see, this is in the very first picture you saw was how the hoof started out looking. This second picture, this one here, is after trimming and cleaned up and this sort of thing. What a difference it makes. Now, the shorter the foot, okay, then the less amount of mud and stuff is going to go up in that foot. Now, that's nice. See how that foot's laid out? Now, here's the only difference. Yes, they put 4 nails in, but they put the 4 nails in the wrong place. Maybe they had to do that in order to do some trimming, but I like to see the 4 nails in the front, not in the quarters. And the reason that is the quarters is where those nails are right now is the weakest place. That right there will keep that foot being contracted, and we're trying to fix the contraction. Now you see right there, see the big old crack in it, and the way the foot is split. When you don't properly trim these animals, they can end up with bad foot problems. And I'll tell you, it's awful to have to put one down because we didn't take care of them. But every 4 to 6 weeks, make sure you get your feet trimmed. Okay. Now the next thing is you want to make sure you warm them every spring. Warming is very, very important. The other thing you want to do is every spring do the dental work. You see how that foot is? You see that big old crack? Yeah, all that right there. Now you can take them and make you up, and they got hoof products too. But you can take some pine tar and linseed oil and some lanolin, and you can mix it up and you can put it on there and help keep that from getting bad. You see how that foot is straight up and down? It shouldn't be like that. That hoof should be the same angle as your shoulder. When you look at the angle of the shoulder, that should be the angle of the hoof. Now, see how that's better now, okay? But it sometimes will take even up to 2 years to get the foot correct on these donkeys, okay? So there you are, Dave.
So that covers the foot. Will you talk to us a little bit about the problems folks are going to run into with their donkey when it comes to the donkey just taking the abuse, taking the pain, and not
Yeah.
showing it the way they might see even with a mule or a horse?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up again, Dave. That's really important, folks. You got to understand that when these donkeys are in pain, They don't show it like horses do. They're very stoic. They'll just stand there. They'll be completely in colic form, standing there, and you would not know that they were colicking other than they didn't go to their feed. It's really important, you all, that you get yourself a thermometer that you can do an anal temperature on. You can also watch the breathing of the nostril and watch the breathing of the sides and do a count on your watch. And then when you talk to the vet, it's really important that you understand that you tell them his temperature is XYZ and that his breathing per minute is XYZ. and you can tell him if he's getting up and down and this sort of thing. But when they're in pain, they don't show it. People say, well, I've been putting this saddle on. I had a guy tell me today, I've been putting this saddle on for 3 years, and now the donkey's laying down. Same saddle, okay? And I said, well, show me a picture of the saddle. Well, he didn't have a rear cinch. He didn't have a breeching, So he was beating up the scapula, and the donkey had enough. And that's what donkeys will do. When they've had enough of putting up with you, they'll just lay down and say, I'm not going to do that anymore, okay? The old cowboys, when they had a horse or a mule or a donkey that did that, they'd pour water in their ear to get them jump up. But what they're trying to tell you is this: hey, I got a problem with what you're doing. I got a problem with the saddle you're putting on me, or I got a problem with trying to do lope in a circle. It's just too scary for me. Or bits, the same way. They'll put their tongue out, okay? But they're very, very stoic. And you don't know that they're dying. Literally, they're dying, okay? You don't know it until it's too late. So make sure that you talk to your vet and get the information that he needs. So when you call him and say, hey, I got a problem with my donkey, ABC, that way he'll have the information for it.
Anything about dental care or vet care specific for the donkey?
Basically, they're going to have the same dental care and the vet care as your equine. Worming every year, balancing the teeth every year, doing the shoeing every 6 to 8 weeks. Very, very important. And the other thing you want to think about too is donkeys are really bad when it comes to flies. They seem to be really allergic to those rascals, and so you'll get on their chest. You'll have a whole bunch of blood places where the flies have bit them and this sort of thing, and they get irritated, and they'll just stand there and take it. But because there's something about their smell that the flies just love to eat up on. So my number one thing is to put a fly mask on. Number one, not with the ears too. Let the hair grow in the ears. Let God take care of that. That's why he designed the hair in the ears to keep the bugs out. Okay. Now, so put a fly mask on. You can use, we've got some products from Dave can put on put on here for you.
Espana silk.
Espana silk, and the products that they have that they use are all natural, and you can put it on your donkeys for those rashes and this sort of thing. I especially like to take WD-40 and spray on the tail, and then when they switch the tail, that oil keeps the fly off them as well. But we've got that website that they can put you to and let them know that Steve sent you.
That's great. Okay, so the next place we're going to go is differences in behavior. And specifically, Steve, I want to talk about fright and flight as it relates to the donkey, and then herd leadership. Will you start off by talking to us about the fright and flight nature of the donkey?
Okay, all equine have flight and fright. It's their favorite weapon to get away from what they perceive to be a problem. One of the downsides with donkeys is they will fight, and you put them in with a bunch of sheep to protect them, which a lot of people do. They will fight those coyotes, and they will fight those bobcats and this sort of thing, and die trying it. But here's the downside. If they feel like they're in trouble, they will kick you and kick you hard. They will bite you and they will bite you hard, okay? That's just what they do to protect themselves. Do they still kind of buck a little bit? Yeah, they don't buck nothing like like a mule or a horse, but they do jump around, and a lot of people do hit the ground. Okay, but that's basically about it, Dave.
Okay. And then what about herd leadership? Are they looking for anything different than a horse would or anything different than a mule would?
No, they definitely want leadership. That's in the equine world. Herd leaders, you need to be that. You need to be that, and you got to do the ass tail demanding, and you got to use that come along hitch and learn how to use that twitch. That's really important. That come along hitch will give you the ability to communicate and show herd leadership, show where they need to be back behind you and where they need to be when you're having to go around in circles and stuff. We have some video here of James Montana with his donkey, his mammoth donkey, and he's teaching the donkey how to turn and stop and this sort of thing. But at the same time, he's creating an air of, I am the herd leader. And you will go around in a circle as I want you to go. You'll stop when I want you to go. Stop. You'll go when I want you to go, and this sort of thing. Not when they make a decision, but in this video here, you'll see him taking this donkey around using the come along hitch.
Steve, if it's okay, before we get to that video, I do have one question about the
Yeah.
nature. This one is a question that I've actually had for a long time and I've never asked you. I know that they use donkeys for the Grand Canyon. I haven't really heard anybody talk about how they would use mules at the Grand Canyon, or if they would at all. Why might somebody use a donkey at the Grand Canyon or prefer a donkey at the Grand Canyon to a mule, or is that just pure personal preference?
Okay, Dave, they don't use donkeys at the Grand Canyon at all.
Oh, I
They
got it mixed up.
only use mules only. Now, what they've done about, what's it been? Close to 25, 30 years ago, there was a bunch of wild donkeys down in there that the miners had taken down, and they got feral, and they had donkeys everywhere, and they were destroying the habitat. So several cowboys went in, and they actually caught these donkeys, and they put them in nets and helicopters and hauled them out. And they also took them up a trail too and tied them all together. But no, they strictly use mules. Donkeys don't have enough strength in their hip to be able to take that type of riding.
Okay, I got it mixed up. I had always known that they used one and not the other. I got it mixed up. But that's good information. They choose not to use the donkeys because of the lack of strength in their hip, and I think that's something. So is it because of the nature of the ride down that it's the added pressure, or is that added pressure something that we should be concerned about when riding a donkey even on level land?
No, it doesn't make any difference going down or going up, because you see, they're still going to be using their hips. Going down, they're going to be getting the hips up underneath them. So let's just say you've got a 4 foot long donkey. When he's going down the hill, his back end is going to come up underneath him. He's going to round out his back, and he's going to use his back legs to kind of hold himself back going down the hill, going down in the canyon. Going up the canyon, that's when they're going to drive off of their hindquarters and use the hindquarters more than the front quarters.
Okay, well, I'm glad that I asked that. That's good to know.
Good
Okay,
question.
now I do want to get into the differences in training, and we can start with the James Montana videos. I have 4 videos, Steve, and we've got 15 minutes here remaining for our time. The benefit is, folks, this is from Steve's latest video, Refined Communication. It is the highest resolution, most comprehensive, all-encompassing video set that he has available right now. I've broken down, it's close to 4 hours of training with
Wow.
Steve and James at James's property in Chino Valley, and it's really quite something. I think you really enjoy it. So we're going to watch part of it tonight, so that's a special treat. Steve, we don't have time to watch all of it, so what I want you to do is just cue me up when you want me to fast forward and get to something, so that we can make the most of the time and you can get to say what you want to say. But I'm gonna fire up here the first one that we got. This first one is James doing ground foundation training. So I'll get this
Okay.
one started here.
Okay. Now, folks, this is what's really important to understand. You see, James, he's actually a veteran. He was in Afghanistan and this sort of thing. And he's also a nurse up at Prescott, Arizona uh, uh, for the Army,
Veterans.
Air Force, and this sort of thing for the hospital up there. Okay, so but his love is these donkeys and mules and horses. So you can see him putting the come along hitch on now. Now he's not a trainer. He's just an everyday guy who enjoys these animals. And but notice how he's got the donkeys being there nice and quiet, pulling over top of the ears, nice and quiet. He's moving along nice and quiet. Notice the head of the donkey, his eyes nice and quiet. But that donkey has learned to stand there because he was showing this donkey herd leadership. Okay, so the donkey knows not to leave him because of what he had done before this with herd leadership. Now, when you get this video, you'll be able to see all this in full time. Okay, like Dave says, it's the most comprehensive. It's an excellent video. Now you can actually use this same video to train your mule as well. Okay. Now watch him when he goes out. He's leading his donkey. Notice where the donkey needs to be, right behind his shoulder. And he goes around and he works with the donkey and teaches the donkey where he needs to be. All right.
She's bracing a little bit, but I'm just using literally one finger to correct her.
You see? Yeah. Okay. Which is nice. But he needs to have his hand over, which I'll talk about later on in the video. But still, notice how the herd leader is in the front and the donkey is paying attention. Okay. Now he stops the donkey, he readjusts the come along hitch, and then you'll start seeing me do some work with the rope. Now, all of this is showing herd leadership. When a donkey learns, he learns from his nose. He does not learn from his mouth. That's why I use the come along. Not only does it teach him herd leadership, but it teaches the, notice how his hand is in the incorrect place. And I'll talk about that in another part of the video, but just not tonight because we don't have the time. Notice how he has him go around in a circle. He's teaching the donkey to go to, with the pressure, light pressure, going to the right, and he'll teach him to the left. But notice how he's taught the donkey to stand still and quiet. That's really important. That's herd leadership. That donkey does not go until James says go with it. Now notice he does it on the right and left. There, right there, you can see the heavy fat pocket on that donkey's neck right there. And down along his ribs, you can see that spot going down there as well. But anyway, see what he's doing here. He's using the come along hitch to be able to teach the donkey, I am the herd leader. When I ask you to go right, you'll go right. When I ask you to go left, you'll go left. And you see the donkey's responding very nicely. Does everybody see that? You need to do that. Now, what are your next steps? Your next steps, now there's other parts of me where I'm refining James, but we won't show that. When you get this video series, you'll find that you'll see all the steps. So the next thing we'll go to is the surcingle work, which is the next part of training. It's really, really important, folks, that you understand that these animals have got only one thing on their mind, and that's to eat, stand still, and poop. That's it, and when to drop road apples on the ground. But we have to teach them by using these particular items of surcingle work, of come along work, and this sort of thing. These items, in order to be able to teach the donkey, it's okay to have something on your back. It's okay to have a breeching. It's okay to tighten up the cinch and this sort of thing. And not only is this kind of like the first saddling with a surcingle, okay, but we start teaching the donkey to respond to the rope halter. Notice I'm using baling twine, and I'm going down to the halter, and I'm going to teach my donkey how to get his nose on the vertical and get his head down, okay? Now notice how he's standing there nice and quiet, waiting for the commands. That's good training on James' part, okay? But this surcingle work, folks, this is, you cannot do enough surcingle work. Even my wife's mule, is a 3-time world champion and 28 years old and just an awesome mule. But probably 3 times a week, I put him in a surcingle. I use the surcingle all the time on all of my mules, but especially my own personal mules. Now, I use the halter to start with because the donkey learns from his nose. And then I add the martingale, my mule rider's martingale, with the halter. So I have the halter and the martingale together. And then I go to my next steps and I take off the halter. I just use the martingale only. And then I do that process. Now, the reason I do that is I do not do lateral flexions like you do horses. I don't do lateral flexions. If somebody's teaching you how to do lateral flexions, that's where you bend the head around to the left and bend the head around to the right, so-called loosen up the neck muscles. You don't do that with a donkey. They will stiffen them up, and it's just like weight lifting and putting muscles on your bicep. You can see Jess in the background there when he was just a puppy going around there. But anyway, so now you see me working the donkey, telling the donkey to go and telling the donkey to move and this sort of thing. And you see that donkey kind of pinned his ears toward Jess a little bit. Not a big deal. But see what we're doing. See how the donkey goes off? See how his head goes down, his nose on the vertical? That's what you're looking for. So your surcingle work with your come along work, you can actually do come along work for 30 minutes in the morning. And then you could do surcingle work for an hour in the afternoon. Just kind of work with your training process the way you want. But this video series here gives you a lot of great information that you can use on your mule and your donkey as well. So there you are with the, see him pin his ears at Jess there and chase at him.
Jess is having a lot of fun back there.
Yeah, Jess was just really a pup right there, but right there, see that donkey go after him? The donkeys can get very protective, and he pinned his ears at old Jess, say, hey, get out of there. So folks, be careful with your dogs around these donkeys because these donkeys will make short work of them now. I also want to tell you, they'll make short work of your kids too. So you want to introduce kids slow but surely so the donkey don't think they're a predator because they're short, okay? So keep that in your mind.
So Steve, the differences, for me, the differences between a donkey and a horse are immense. There are some similarities, but in terms of day-to-day working with them and day-to-day considerations on how to best communicate, it's a world difference. But it seems to me that the differences between the donkey and the mule are much smaller. They're not as pronounced, and even I can't tell necessarily what the differences are. If you had to nail the top 2 or 3 differences between a mule and a donkey, what would you say that is? Encompassing everything we've talked about, nutrition, healthcare, behavior. If you had to say, these are the main 2 or 3 differences between the mule and the donkey.
Okay, so the one main difference with a donkey compared to any of the equine is they're not as reactive and go to chase off and run or go to buck like a mule or a horse would. They're more apt to see it, watch it, look at it, turn and go. Sometimes they will, spin and turn and go if they really feel like they're in a problem. But they don't just take off running and go 9-0 like horses do or like mules do, okay? So they're not as reactive as that. The other thing too is since they are so stoic, you think they're not getting it, but you start doing it and show them every move is a picture. Did you notice when James was working with the donkey, he was going very slow, putting everything into place? That's what you need to do, okay? Horses, donkeys, and mules makes no difference, but especially with a donkey, because a donkey wants to see every movement that you're doing. They're extremely intelligent, okay? And it's amazing to see a year later what you thought they may have missed, how they show you they got it, okay? Good and bad habits now, all right? Good and bad habits. You want to be careful. thinking that, okay, I'm training, I'm using this smooth snaffle bit because Joe Blow trainer taught me there at Joe Blow Trainer's Donkey and Mule Clinic, and we used these slobber straps, and we used anyway. You don't do that, okay? This is a donkey. They don't care about their mouth, okay? Then if you use a smooth snaffle bit, they will take it and run one day. You think you're doing good, they ain't gonna do it. You don't use horse techniques on the donkey, especially with a donkey, okay? They will get a hold of that bit and you ain't gonna get it loose and they'll take off running.
Steve, I've got a few questions that have come in. Vicky sent in a question during the program. Says, I have 2 donkeys, both 13. Buddy is people friendly, but Fred, I've had for a year, got him intact and had him gelded. I haven't been able to gain his trust enough to get a halter on him. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, when they've been intact that long, it's tough. Their mind is on breeding. Their mind is not on other things. So what my suggestion is going to be, put him in a 20 by 20 stall, and we have some video on how to catch your mule in a pen, and you'll see me doing different things. I'm teaching a lady and a man how to do that, and the same things, folks, that I teach work on a mule will work on your donkey. Okay, you just got to go just a teeny bit more slower and let them see every move's a picture. Matter of fact, the slower you go, the better you're going to be. Okay, but the best thing you can do is put that donkey in a separate stall, and the best thing you can do is watch that video as to the steps that I use to help this lady and man catch their mule.
That video series that Steve is talking about is called Establishing Leadership. That's a free video series on YouTube. Y'all can check it out. I put a link in the comments section. It's a great series, and you'll learn a lot from it, particularly how to catch your mule and establish leadership from the very beginning. Tish has a question. Tish actually is very, very active in the chat tonight. She's got several. First, she says, I got 2 donkeys, mother and son. I thought them to be hardy. They don't need blankets generally. The coat is windproof. The person I got the donkeys from said they have thin coats and they do need blankets. Do I need to put a blanket on them?
No, you don't need to put a blanket on them. That makes you feel good. All right, makes you feel good. It depends on what part of the country as to how these equine grow hair, especially grow thicker. I can tell you, I've been up in Montana and be below zero weather up there, and my mules did just fine. They had a little bit of a blanket of hair of snow across the top of them at times in the mornings before we brushed them off, but they do just fine. You know, matter of fact, I've seen them stand out in the cotton picking snowstorm rather than being inside the barn, you know, simply because they can handle it. So I wouldn't worry about the blanket situation. Just let your donkey do natural what God gave him to do.
The next question she had, she says, is a donkey's feet to be trimmed upright like a mule or more like a horse?
Okay. Upright, we don't want them standing straight up and down. When you shoe or trim a donkey or mule, okay, but when you do it, the slope of the shoulder, look at the slope of the shoulder. That slope of the shoulder tells you what the slope of the hoof should be. All right. So don't go listening to somebody who says stand them straight up and down. Don't do that. Okay. You got a chance of doing a rotated coffin bone. We are going to have a professional shoer on one of our webinars, and he's going to give you a pretty good idea of what he likes to trim them to on a basic average. Now, it also depends on how contracted they are, but don't listen to somebody who says you got to stand them straight up and down. Don't do that, okay? Nor do you want to take all the heel off. You don't want to do that. But you want to trim them short enough so that mud and stuff does not pack up in there and stay. That's one of the bad problems with mule and donkey people is their hooves are too long. They get a bunch of dirt and stuff in there, and they get bacteria in there, and they get a lot of hoof disease. So you want to consider that.
Great. And then Tish's final question. My mules and donkeys are on a dry lot. The mule will not eat straight Timothy hay. they will eat Timothy alfalfa hay. What do you suggest? Now, I put in there the feed talk video in Tish. Steve suggests a pellet as the feed. He worked with Lake and Light to help develop a pellet with Lake and Milling, but that's not available everywhere. Star Milling has something that's similar, but really all you need to do, I'll put a link in the comment section here to Steve's article, Mules Can't Stand Prosperity. There's going to be an ingredient list that you can take to your local feed shop and say, this is the starting point that I want. What do you have that's like this? And then on top of that, the best thing you can do for your animal is to get a hair follicle or blood sample test done so you can find out the areas where the animal might be proficient, because it's going to be just like humans. Steve's body produces certain vitamins and minerals in greater abundance than my body does, and vice versa. I have deficiencies that he doesn't, and he has deficiencies that I don't. The animal is the same. So you can find out really where your animal stands and then get a feed developed or a feeding program developed that will address those deficiencies. Anything else you would add, Steve?
No, that's great. You hit all the nails on the head really good there. But here's the main thing, folks. They will eat that Timothy hay after a while. It's just like a kid, you know. You if you don't give them all the cookies all the time, they won't ask for them. Okay, they will eat the Timothy hay. Make sure each one of your mules and donkeys are in a separate stall so that you feed them accordingly. Okay, don't feed any of your mules and donkeys alfalfa Timothy combination. Don't do that. That's the best way I know to get them grass foundered. The best way I know to get them foundered. So anyway, that's it, Dave. I think we're done, huh?
Just about. I did have. Do you have time for two more questions?
Sure. Two more questions. Let's go.
Okay. Quick question. This one came in, says, I'm training. I need help training to keep my donkey stopped when in harness. What can we do for that?
Okay, so here's the main thing that we tend to do when the donkey wants to keep on going. Okay, is we kind of pull on both reins, and we tend to make him brace against us. Anytime you pull on a donkey, he's going to brace against you. So number one, do not use a smooth snaffle bit. Don't use smooth snaffle bit. You'll split their tongue with it. I've seen it time and time again. Do use a full cheek double twisted wire bit. The double twisted wire bit is easier on the donkey, and it comes on both sides of the tongue, not just in one spot. So what's going to happen? When you go up and you're going to ask, you're going to say, whoa, with both reins. He doesn't stop, you're going to tail, right, left, right, left, right, left. He doesn't stop, you are going to go really hard at him. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. The split second they stop, you get quiet. Okay? You're going to ask, you're going to tell, demand. Do not use a smooth snaffle bit. You'll create lots of problems, and you will split the tongue.
Great. And then the last question I've got is Joyce says, my donkey weighs 600 pounds. Can a 170-pound man ride him if he rides no more than 2 hours a day, 2 days a week?
It's not a matter of how many hours, okay? And 150 pounds is not so bad, okay? But here's the deal. You got to understand that you get, just like any other equine, you have to leg them up. They're tendons on the back. You want to make sure they're firm all the way around. It's not a matter of only riding a short time. It's a matter of preparing the donkey to be able to carry the weight. So the nice thing about the surf single is that surf single will balance them out, makes them drive off their hindquarters, and guess what? They get stronger hindquarters from it, okay? So can he ride them? Yes, he can. It's not a matter of how long. It's a matter of conditioning. The stronger your donkey gets, the more he'll be able to handle.
Fantastic. Thank you, folks, so much for joining us tonight. Let's see. I've got that Mules Can't Stand Prosperity link that I'm putting in the comment section right now. That is going to give you the starting point for the feed like we talked about. If there was any parts that you would like to go back and revisit, I will be sending out a link tomorrow where you can go back and you can rewatch this program, and so you can check it out again. And I want to remind you that the clips that we showed tonight, there were just a couple of them. Most of this was informative, not demonstrative, but there were a couple clips. Those came from the Refined Communication video series that we filmed with James Montana. Again, that's almost 4 hours of instruction with James and his donkey. It's good for mules too. So if you have a mule and you're like, I don't have a donkey, I've got a mule. No, you can use it for a mule too. It's fantastic instruction. And it's not only going to help you learn to communicate with your animal, but it'll help you become a more confident herd leader, which so much of the things that you're looking for in your animal, that's where it begins, is herd leadership. And the more confident you are stepping into the round pen, stepping into their stall, stepping out onto the trail with them, that will translate into your communication because they're paying attention to every little thing that you're doing and they are watching. Is this somebody that I want to follow? Is this somebody that's going to give me the leadership that I'm looking for? So thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate you spending time. If you have any further questions, send us an email, support@muleranch.com. You can find all of the products we talked about tonight at muleranch.com. And Steve, I want folks to know one final thing. And folks, this is a really big deal, so I want you all to listen up. We are thrilled to provide as much training as we can for free, put videos out on YouTube for free, post all sorts of information on muleranch.com for free. And on top of that, Steve and Susan have worked diligently to price everything at muleranch.com as best as they can, an honest price for an honest product. Every now and again, every several years, it comes a point where we decide that it's the right time to play catch up to the increases that we've had, and we increase costs on the shop to match the increases that we've received from our suppliers. That time has come. So the good news is that right now, between now and the end of the year, you are going to find the best price over the next 12 months on the shop, on the saddles, on the tack, on the britchin, everything when it comes to physical products. Digital videos, those stay the same. But everything else, we will be adjusting prices in 2026. So if you've got your eye on something, why spend more money when you don't have to? Go ahead, capitalize on it now with our 2025 inventory, and you'll be the better for it. And if you have any problems or any questions about the products, we want to help you, so you can reach out to us. So, Steve, I hope you're okay with me throwing that in there. I just want folks to know that now is as good a time as any, if not a better time than next year. So with that, that's it for tonight. Steve, any final words?
No, hey, great show, Dave. Thank you so much. I had a couple people tell me over the past several people over the past few months, boy, that Dave sure got a Christian smile on him, and he sure does know them mules, but I can tell he loves Jesus.
Yeah, the Lord is good, man, and following Jesus, there is no better thing than that. And with that, in this Christmas season, we'll say Merry Christmas, y'all. Enjoy. Reach out if you need anything. We love you and appreciate you. God bless. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Really fucking